The last signal. The skies above Veyra burned red with the glow of enemy patrols. The Zorath never allowed the night to be truly dark. Their ships prowled endlessly, engines rumbling like distant thunder. For the Aelyri, the stars had long been stolen, hidden behind the cold metal of their oppressors. Lyrian crouched in the ruins of what had once been her people's grand library. The stone spires that had reached for the heavens now lay broken, scattered across the ground like the bones of giants. She pressed her hand against the ash-coated floor and felt the faint tremor of another bombardment far to the east. Another village erased. Another memory lost. Her task was simple, though heavy: record. She was a chronicler, the last of her guild. The Aelyri had always believed in memory, in stories carried forward even when lives were taken. Her voice, scratched into data slates, was all that remained of her people's history. And even she had begun to wonder if it mattered. The Zorath Empire had ruled the skies for generations. Their fleets stretched across systems, their soldiers crushed rebellion wherever it dared to stir. The Aelyri were not the first to fall under their boot, and they would not be the last. Resistance fighters whispered of freedom, but their voices grew fewer with each passing season. Lyrian dipped her stylus and wrote, whispering the words as she carved them into the slate. "We endure. Even as the light fades, we endure." She paused, the words hollow in her mouth. Who would ever read them? Her companion, an elder named Zorath, shuffled into the chamber. His cloak was ragged, his eyes tired but sharp. In his hands, he carried a battered transmitter, an ancient device, scavenged and repaired a dozen times. Its wires hung loose like veins from an open wound. "It is ready," he said, voice a-rasp. Lyrian blinked at him. "You repaired it. Repaired enough." He set the transmitter on a broken pedestal where books once rested. "We will send the signal tonight." She frowned. "A signal to who?" "The Zorath will intercept." "They always do." "Not this one." Zorath's eyes gleamed with a fragile fire. "We will send it beyond their nets." A cry, a memory. If there are others out there, perhaps they will hear. Lyrian laughed bitterly. "Others? You speak of myths. Old stories of distant stars. No one comes. No one ever comes." Zorath did not answer. Instead, he crouched and keyed the transmitter. The machine whined, coughing static into the chamber. Symbols flickered weakly across its cracked screen. He gestured for her. "You are the chronicler. Your voice must carry our plea." Her throat tightened. She wanted to refuse, to tell him it was pointless, that no one listened. But the look in his eyes, desperate yet stubborn, silenced her. Slowly, she leaned over the transmitter. Her voice shook as she spoke, but she forced the words to steadiness. "To any who can hear, we are the Aelyri of Veyra. Our world is dying. Our skies belong to the Zorath, and our children are taken as tribute. We do not ask for war, nor conquest. We only ask that someone remember we lived, that we dreamed, that we were more than ashes." She stopped, breath uneven. The silence after was heavier than any bombardment. Zorath nodded and pressed the activation rune. A faint pulse of light surged into the night, vanishing upward through the broken ceiling. The transmitter hummed, its signal climbing toward the void. For a moment, Lyrian let herself imagine it reaching someone, anyone, among the stars. But the thought was too fragile to hold. She lowered her head, whispering to herself, "No one will save us." Outside, the sky rumbled with the shadow of Zorath patrols. The people of Veyra huddled in the ruins, waiting for the next strike. And far above them, a message of despair began its long journey through the dark. "The signal reaches Earth." The signal arrived broken and faint, a ghost across the void. It slipped past layers of static, through outdated relays, until it flickered into the deep-range receivers of Earth's exploratory network. Most signals like it were dismissed, echoes of stars, cosmic noise, fractured fragments of ancient transmissions. But this one was different. Admiral Marcus Hayes sat in the dim-lit command chamber aboard Argus Station, reviewing the packet. The translation software had worked tirelessly for hours, stitching together the words of a language no one on Earth had ever spoken. What emerged was not perfect, but it carried weight. "We are the Aelyri of Veyra. Our world is dying. Our skies belong to the Zorath. We only ask that someone remember we lived." The Admiral leaned back in his chair, the words pressing into him like iron. He had fought wars before, on Mars, on Europa, in the cold belt where pirates preyed on the weak. He knew the sound of despair when he heard it. A knock at the chamber door broke his thoughts. Captain Elena Rhodes, his aide, stepped inside, her expression tight. "Council's ready for you, sir. They've heard about the transmission." Hayes nodded, pocketing the slate. He walked with her down the long corridor, past officers and engineers who worked in silence, unaware that history was shifting beneath their feet. The council chamber was a ring of glass and steel, Earth's flags draped behind the seats. Representatives of the United Earth Directorate sat in a circle, voices low with tension. When Hayes entered, they turned as one. "Admiral," said Chancellor Wei, her tone clipped, "we understand you've received an alien distress signal. Show us." Hayes placed the slate on the table. The message echoed once more, halting and raw. As the final words faded, silence filled the chamber. Councillor Tarak was the first to speak. "This is not our concern. The Zorath Empire is powerful, far beyond us. To interfere is to invite destruction." Another councillor nodded. "Earth is still young among the stars. We've barely secured our own colonies. Shall we gamble everything for strangers?" Murmurs of agreement rose. Only a few faces looked uncertain. Hayes stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of years in service. "With respect, this is not just a cry for help. It is a mirror. Do you not hear it? They ask only to be remembered, to not vanish in silence." "And what would you propose, Admiral?" Tarak asked coldly. "March our fleets into war? Against an empire that dwarfs us?" "No," Hayes said. His gaze swept the chamber. "I propose we remember who we are. Humanity was born in struggle. We tore ourselves from the dirt, we crossed oceans, we rose to the stars, not because anyone saved us, but because we refused to be forgotten. If we hear this call and turn away, then what have we become?" His words cut through the air. The councillors shifted uneasily. Chancellor Wei's eyes narrowed. "And if the Zorath crush us for this?" "Then we fight," Hayes answered simply. "Not for conquest, not for glory. For a people who believed they were alone. For the chance to show them that they are not." The debate raged for hours. Fear battled against conscience, pragmatism against principle. In the end, the council did not give a unanimous order. But neither did they forbid. They left the choice in the Admiral's hands. That night, Hayes stood at the observation deck of Argus Station, gazing at Earth below. Lights glimmered across the continents, the mark of a civilization that had survived its darkest hours. Beside him, Captain Rhodes spoke quietly. "If you give the order, the fleet will follow. But this could be the beginning of something we can't undo." Hayes did not look away from the stars. "Good. Some things should never be undone." He lifted his comm, transmit fleet-wide directive. "Mobilize all available vessels. Set course for Veyra." Across the black, engines roared to life. Humanity's answer to the Aelyri had begun. When the skies broke. The Aelyri had long since stopped looking upward. The skies were only reminders of chains, Zorath warships prowling, their shadows falling like curses upon the land. But on that day, the ground itself trembled, and the sky turned white with fire. Lyrian was in the canyon basin, recording the names of the fallen, when she heard it first, a deep, rolling thunder unlike the usual Zorath engines. She lifted her eyes cautiously, expecting another patrol. Instead, she saw streaks of light tearing through the clouds, dozens, then hundreds. Ships. But not Zorath. Her breath caught as the village gathered, pointing upward. Children clutched their parents, torn between awe and fear. The Aelyri had dreamed of freedom before, but this was no dream. Real vessels blazed across the sky, their formation tight, their engines howling like storms. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the Zorath fleet descended. Dark, angular warships cut across the heavens, their weapons gleaming, their engines drowning the air in a roar of dominance. The Aelyri shrank back, terror surging like a tide. They had seen this before, Defiance crushed, rebels burned alive. What hope could these strangers possibly bring? The first volleys answered. The human fleet struck like lightning. Plasma lances seared through Zorath armor, explosions blossoming against the black. Earth's ships moved not like lumbering beasts but like predators, fast, precise, relentless. Admiral Hayes stood at the command dais aboard the Resolute, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Red enemy icons swarmed across the screen, but his voice remained steady. All wings, hold formation Delta 7. Push them off the orbital line. Remember, no retreat. This is their home, and today it becomes ours to defend. Acknowledgements rippled through the comms. The fleet surged forward. From the ground, Lyrian could only watch. The skies became a tapestry of chaos, brilliant streaks of energy, ships diving and weaving, fire consuming the heavens. To the Aelyri, who had known nothing but despair, it was as if the universe itself had been reborn. "Who are they?" whispered Zorath beside her, eyes wide. Lyrian shook her head, voice trembling. I don't know. But they are not Zorath." Above them, one of the massive Zorath dreadnoughts turned its cannons toward the surface, aiming to punish the Aelyri for daring to witness hope. But before its guns could fire, 3 human destroyers broke formation, diving headlong into its path. They struck with coordinated fury, ripping through its shields in a blaze of fire. The dreadnought staggered, then collapsed in a cascade of flame, breaking apart as the human ships sped free of the wreckage. The Aelyri gasped as pieces of burning metal rained harmlessly into the desert. For the first time in centuries, the oppressors bled. But the Zorath were not weak. Reinforcements warped in, waves of black warships filling the horizon. The human fleet was outnumbered, outgunned. Captain Rhodes called from her station. "Admiral, if we stay, we'll lose half the fleet." Hayes's jaw tightened. "If we leave, we lose ourselves." He leaned forward, voice sharp. "Bring in the reserves. And tell every ship in this fleet, we hold until the skies are ours." The order surged through the comms. Humanity did not flinch. The battle raged for hours. Human frigates darted between enemy cruisers, tearing them apart from within. Carriers unleashed waves of strike craft that moved like storms through the dark. For every human ship that fell, 2 Zorath followed it into ruin. And through it all, the Aelyri stood on the scorched earth, their eyes lifted not in fear but in wonder. When the final Zorath cruiser broke apart, its engines bursting in a silent bloom of fire, a cry rose from the villages below. Thin at first, then stronger, a song, ancient and trembling, carried by voices that had nearly forgotten how to hope. The skies cleared. Smoke trailed from the wreckage of fallen warships, but the horizon shone bright again. "They did it," Zorath whispered, tears streaking his cheeks. "The Zorath are gone." Lyrian's hands trembled as she clutched her slate. Her people had prayed for memory, not salvation. But salvation had come, wrapped in thunder and flame. She turned her gaze to the heavens, where Earth's fleet now circled in triumph. For the first time, the words formed not from despair, but from awe. "The skies have shattered, and we are free." The covenant of stars. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt louder than the thunder of cannons. Across the deserts of Veyra, the Aelyri stood beneath the broken sky, watching the unfamiliar silhouettes of Earth's ships drift above their world like guardians. Lyrian walked among her people, still clutching her slate. Everywhere she looked, faces were lit by firelight and awe. Children laughed for the first time in memory, chasing each other between the ruins. Elders sat weeping openly, their wrinkled hands pressed to their hearts. Even Zorath, the skeptic who had rebuilt the transmitter, gazed upward as if afraid to blink and lose the vision. When the first shuttles descended, the crowd fell into silence. Human soldiers and medics emerged, armor-scarred, uniforms marked by soot and blood, but their hands carried crates, not weapons. Food, medicine, water. The Aelyri hesitated. Too many times before, aid had been a mask for conquest. But one of the humans, an older man with iron-gray hair and steady eyes, stepped forward. He removed his helmet and bowed his head. "I am Admiral Marcus Hayes of Earth," he said. His voice carried not just through translators but in tone, in presence. "We did not come to conquer. We came because we heard your voice." The translator repeated the words in the Aelyri tongue. Lyrian's chest tightened as she realized the truth. Her voice, her plea, had reached across the stars. She stepped forward, her people watching, and bowed in return. "You shattered the sky," she whispered. "You gave us back the stars." In the days that followed, Earth's fleet remained in orbit. Supplies were distributed, wounds tended, shelters built from salvaged wreckage. Humanity moved among the Aelyri not as masters but as equals, teaching, repairing, listening. Lyrian found herself at Admiral Hayes' side often, serving as interpreter and chronicler. She recorded everything: the way human engineers restored ancient wells with their strange machines, the way children gathered around human medics to marvel at their tools, the way laughter began to creep back into the voices of her people. But the shadow of the Zorath lingered. Everyone knew the Empire would not forget this defeat. One evening, atop the canyon ridge, Hayes stood with Lyrian as the twin suns dipped below the horizon. Below them, the Aelyri sang, an old hymn of survival, now rising with hope instead of grief. "They will come again," Lyrian said softly. "The Zorath will not forgive what you have done." Hayes nodded, his gaze steady on the darkening horizon. "They will. And when they do, they'll learn something new about humanity." She tilted her head. "And what is that?" "That we don't abandon those who stand with us." His voice was firm, unshakable. "The Aelyri are not alone anymore." Her heart trembled at the words. For centuries, her people had believed no one would save them. Yet here stood a man who spoke as if their survival was not just possible, but inevitable. When the time came for the Resolute to depart, the entire village gathered at the basin to watch. The fleet would remain nearby, patrolling the system, but the flagship had to return to Earth with news of what had begun. Before he boarded, Hayes turned back to the Aelyri. His gaze found Lyrian among the crowd. He raised a clenched fist over his heart, the human gesture of solidarity. Lyrian lifted her slate high, a promise that their story would endure. As the Resolute lifted, its engines painting the night with golden fire, the people of Veyra raised their voices in a single unified cry. It was not a cry of desperation, but of rebirth. Years later, the historians of two worlds would tell the story in different tongues but with the same meaning. They would say that the Aelyri sent a final message into the dark, believing no one would answer. They would say that the Zorath, for all their power, could not break the will of a fledgling species called humanity. And they would say that on the day Earth's fleet arrived, the skies shattered and hope returned. Lyrian's final words in her chronicle captured it best. "We thought no one would save us. But humanity did not come with chains. They came with open hands, with fire in their skies, and with a promise written in the stars: you will never stand alone again."